Alrighty, we should be good. Is your music? Yeah, music's coming through with the mix. Okay, good. Let's move this down. Move this up. We got YouTube chat. I don't know if that's an old YouTube chat. I gotta see. Maybe the chat is actually live. Nope. Let me get chat arena open here. Yeah, it's annoying that the event changes each time, and that I had to go and actually pop the event up. Alright, we should be good now. So this week I started working on the audio system. I have a lot of the, there's some gravity stuff we need to iron out for this month. So we've added an audio player, but in reality I think this this is going to become a root node, and it's going to have some child audio players. Okay, so because we're doing audio stuff today, we might have to kill some of the music actually. And yeah, I don't know if you're getting that coming in. Let's see. Can we grab the teleport audio from the teleport? Okay, maybe we're just not capturing it. So let me just hit here real quick. Let's add in our application audio capture, Godot audio. This will bring over Discord audio. And we can turn this down. Yeah, because I want to actually show you guys what we're actually doing today. Alright, so we're setting up. Notice music super loud. And the in-game music's kind of basic right now. It's meant to just be background music. Right, we have our new audio, so we're going to bring music down. Just to kind of be able to hear it. And then we have our audio. Hello, good sir. It's Jack here. Hey, man, how's it going? Yeah, the audio stuff is actually like super fun. So we have a new audio manager. A lot of this Jack is now working in multiplayer. Okay, so now when I kind of yeet these, right? So it's trying to minimize the number of contacts because we don't really want to simulate a ton. We want there to be some, you know, because we're gonna have thousands of these boxes, and we really don't want to kind of smoother. Oh yeah, dude, there's so much. Pagan, I wanted to show you something. Totally out of scope for the month. So let me show you the goal for the month. Okay, so this is what you're paying for. I like this. This is what a little bit of a better. How do I explain? It's not like what we're doing this month is going to be polished in any way, but it's going to be systemically playable, if that makes sense. So we have 3 mining ships. We have our standard cargo ship, you know, with a cargo grid. This is all going to be gray box. We have our mining ship. So this is a mining module. So the mining module changes the ship configuration. It's the same ship, but these are all reusable parts. So the way that these work is on the inside, you just have hallway space now. There's 2 ore canisters on each side, and they'll have a little panel that shows the volume. So this is like hopper volume. This configuration then limits, like you still have all of your normal, you know, internal space. You just, in the back, there's no longer that massive cargo. You're sacrificing it for ore, right, with the ore module. So the whole underbelly of each side is now a big hopper, and you know, now we have dual tractor beams and dual mining lasers, right? So this thing can actually, you know, crush rocks, and the idea is the tractor beams are actually working together to pull stuff into the hoppers. So it's a physicalized scooping mechanic that pulls in the rocks and actually, you know, crunches them all up. And this leads us to the new baby, right? The new baby doesn't have, it has standard configuration, so like weapons, but doesn't need any mining lasers, because if you look at the back here of what's attached, it's tanks, right? So its configuration, you know, they're pretty much fuel scoops, right? So they're fuel scoops in the sides instead of the, right, I'm using the same front of the model, obviously, just to kind of demonstrate. But this converts the hydrogen, right, into fuel. So we have the, you know, this module. I don't know if my light works. Maybe not. Like a, but a small version. Here, let me get my multi-tool out. Yeah, and turn the light on. Right, so this module here, right, connects to these tanks, and these are 2x2x8 tanks. So you do, with gas mining, still have internals cargo storage. So gas mining is actually pretty good, right? Like a gas mining module actually adds the ability to mine fuel and mine gas, but it adds mass, maneuverability, and limits your hard points. But is, you know, it's a gas mining ship, and if we, just to kind of give into the promise, so the way that these work, I think the gas mining variant here has still has some weapons. So I want to show you something new. So, and this is all working. So the square right here, this is the gas volume, or the square, the circle. Now, the gas volume itself right now is nothing but data. to mine gas, you have to maintain a certain speed, depending on the throughput of. Oh god! And I shouldn't have targeted that enemy. There's something weird about the targeting right now. Let's load it back up again. We'll fix that crash. Yeah. So the new so we have new audio system, fully synced audio. Right, so that's what we're working on. But let's take you're hearing it. Yeah, we have some background audio. You gotta figure out why targeting crashes that particular ship. I think the hollow projector needs to be set up. So let me show you gameplay. So, you know, we're here, we're in the gas mining ship. I'm not going to target anything because I don't trust it. So all we do is we slowly fly. Let me bring it through the gas. So I'm just going to set my thrust. And we're going to just start slowly scooping. And although you don't have anything, there's nothing here really to, you know, to actually see other than this pocket. The way this will work is these will be volumetric fog or volumetric clouds in space, and they'll have a certain depth. So you get a visual indication of them. But you'll also be able to, like, on your sensors, you'll see the pockets. So the way it works on mechanically, if I can actually get to a point where I can see these orbit lines, I need to give them some emissive material. But ideally, like, there's points within that volume, and your proximity to those points, you know, there's high yield, you know, pockets, and you're kind of like you're looking at the hollow projector, trying to figure out what the composition is, what the gas composition is, and you know, just kind of getting a feel for it, and you're doing the classical scooping, right? Like veins and mining. Yep. Right, but for gas mining, it's just, you know, it's a scooping gameplay loop. So now, right, some of this gravity stuff is still broken. So, right, that's a part of this refactoring. So there's now a refinery terminal. Right, and we can see we've collected, you know, 320 things of fuel, which we can... yeah, there we go. So I have on this character, yeah, 2,027,000, because I did a couple of missions already, and so we just want to sell all this. So we just sell it. The UI is not updating. This is the very first of the refinery terminal UI, but the ship gets empty, you know, and we're good to actually, you know, start mining again. So what I want to have this month is I want the stations to generate, you know, like gas mining contracts. Hey, go get some hydrogen because we need hydrogen, and you know, like, make it a thing. So then the other aspect of this, once again, all part of the same sprint for this month, because I still have weapons. We're going to head over here to the gas mining, or to the ore mining field. So let me just speed up. Yep. So you'll notice here we have our giant asteroid field of millions of asteroids, right? So the way that the asteroid system works is it spawns in mineable asteroids mixed in with inert, right? So the inert is just there to distract you, to create the gameplay of hide and seek, right? So if we can generate, you know, 2 million asteroids, playing find the asteroid is very complicated. Now for this month, they're going to stay capsules. This will be a part of an art pass later on. But these all split apart into chunks with the mining lasers. Obviously, I'm shooting them with regular lasers, so they're not breaking apart. You know, they're not supposed to be taking critical damage by me just playing, you know, blow the asteroid up. But these can now be broken down, and then if you switch to your mining, to your actual asteroid beam, it's the same thing, right? We suck up all the ore, And then we bring the ore back to the station to sell the ore. And the idea, the economic idea of this month, like I said, it's about delivering a gameplay mechanic that can be put into the hands of testers. I guess would be like, I won't say players, we'll say testers, right? That's what the Patreon community really is. Right? We can, if I can get this month's stretch goals of getting these 3 mechanics of 3 variations of the ships. So we have our basic ore mining, our basic gas mining, and our basic, standard combat ship. Then what we have is we have mission capacity. So we can have missions that spawn, station needs X metals. How do they get metals? Ore, right? So ore gets refined into metals. Ice is refined into water, right? The hydrogen itself can just be scooped directly, but there'll be a whole process because with water we can technically make hydrogen. We can kind of convert water into all the things that we need for life support systems on a station. So there's some very initial, the gameplay discoverability that can happen very early, I guess, right? So, and it gives players different variations of the same ship, and I like that because the ships it becomes a configuration and not a unique ship. That means in the future when we create variations of the ship, we can have variations of those modules, and that creates a whole different styling, but it's systemic the same, right? So the ship can have different characteristics and different control, but internally it's the same, right? You can mix and match it with the same types of modules. It has just a different exterior, different feel. We're talking about tractor trailers, right? You have a tractor trailer, and whether the outside shell of the tractor trailer is a Peterbilt or a Western Star or a Mack, they're fundamentally the same chassis, you know what I mean? And my ships work that way too. So we can create many different variations of them, but we also want to create systemic variations of them, right? So you hook up these modules. The modules are designed to take away functionality and add functionality. If you outfit a ship to be like a rescue ambulance, as an example, you get back the tanks or healing tanks, and you get like medical beds, but then you don't have any storage, right? And it's that trade-off. And in the game, ultimately, those will be tied behind reputation, right? Like you can go and rescue people with some pretty standard large-scale tractor beams, that you can hook onto the ship. You can pull shit. You can do whatever, but you don't get those massive, configuration options to totally convert your ship into like what a SRV would be in Star Citizen, until you gain the reputation with a salvage company, right? Like you don't get the tools, you don't get the types of lasers that can like cut through ships more effectively. The idea is to create reputation, dynamic reputation systems that players can kind of like dig into the fat with, right? Do missions become, known with that reputation, gain what types of items that those reputations have to offer. And as the player explores different, avenues of baddie versus goodie, and they lose reputation and they gain reputation, then you can lose all that or gain all that. But if you've already unlocked it all, then this works, right? So that's how it works in Unforgiven Space. And it's one of those things that people may or may not like, but I've already committed to. Like everything in Unforgiven Space as a dream game or as a vision is already in my head, right? Like it's already like set in stone, and whether people agree with it or not, they just have to play it and see, right? Now, obviously, we'll change direction, but I already have this balance in my brain of the yin and yang of things, of what security looks like versus what smuggling looks like. And right, so this is right, like how mining will work. It's going through these massive ore, right, like rocks, and scanning. The UI stuff will be evolved later, but right now I want to get all the systems tied together, because I've had the ability to do this for a very long time, right? We've had the ability to kind of suck these up, and players on track, with consequences, right? And it doesn't mean like we want them to be baddies. We want them to earn it, right? Like the longer you're alive with a wanted the sticker on your head, you become that outlaw. I want you to feel like you've earned the right to be that outlaw. Like it's not just about killing someone and being a baddie. It's the skill ceiling of maintaining being a baddie, right? And you get all of the rewards of being a baddie, right? Like like being a drug runner, being whatever. But it's the cost versus reward. You could lose it all. You know what I mean? Like you could like, oh shit, maybe I won't. So it's kind of up to you, because then you add substance to the game, right? When the penalties are harsh, but there's also something in the game whispering, you can do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, why would it be a baddie in this game? I keep getting, you're right, but then you realize there's these factions, and within these factions there are rewards, but you can't get them. You know what I mean? Like you would have to earn them. Right. So right, that's how I kind of see it. It's all just like questing, maintaining, be it lawful or criminal. Yep. Yeah, and then like kind of like having fun, like kind of doing that in the sandbox of things. So that's been yesterday. Now I wanted to show you this. I was in your stream the other day, but you were actually streaming, so I didn't want to actually stream this because this is very prototypey stuff, and it doesn't even look that great in gray box right now. But let me throw the music back on here, and we'll blend our music with it. So. Yeah, so like I said, none of this is going in the game. Right. So consider all of this prototype, research and development, throwaway projects, But I think I got this nailed at this point. So what I'm about to show you is a super high performance multi-threaded rendering system that I'm working on. I'm not at a stage where I'm actually writing the compute shaders for it or anything like that. So we're gonna look at this in wireframe only. So what I have, so we have a brand new water shader. This water shader is going to be used for the water planet, right? Visual fidelity target. Not what I want to show you. We're turning it off. We're going to start moving backwards. Oh, yeah. Hang on. I need to revert to the original version real quick. So here, I want you to note the frame rate. So this is a biome system that I'm working on. But it has the power to render fast enough, right, that I can run around the planet at the speed that we need. So this is, it's very primitive right now. So let me just bring this up. Right, so this is the system. Kind of right now. Right, so we have 3 levels of detail. Right, with dynamic dynamic biome generation. It's all on a cube sphere, so it's very, very easy. See, this is the stuff I need to work on. Like, I need to get the normals actually like joining between the cube spheres edges, which will be done with the quad tree. So right now, like, I got to add quad tree support, simplify it, add a compute shader. The compute shader is going to do the stitching between the chunks. But ideally, once it's done, so blending, that'll all happen natural, like as we're coming in. Right, the different biomes will kind of blend. Like I said, this is kind of very, primitive lotting right now. But once you can actually see the chunks, but this will work. Got a jet. Girlfriend's home, but we got to catch up soon. Gotcha. Yep, definitely. So this is like this technique's super fast. Like I'm not even into the compute shader yet. Just in raw performance mesh generation, 1200 FPS, and this can scale up a lot bigger, obviously, because we're 64-bit. So the game plan for the Planet Tech is to not go too crazy. Like, you see, all of these little things, they're very terrible right now. They're meant to be like where a tree would spawn, and they're not like, randomly distributed in any way that makes sense, or they're just not in the water, right? And these little guys, you see, I don't even know if I have them shown. Probably not. Yeah, here, right? These are different grasses. So these all represent different grass blades for different plane levels. And obviously there'll be way more of these too, right? It's you totally right. It's just to make sure the noise algorithm is working, and it's creating the correct chunks. But yeah, so this will give us fully explorable, very, very, very early planets. Because remember, the whole point of the planets is just to place our landing locations, right? To have minables, to spawn in derelicts, to not be a system of, or not to be a complicated system of gameplay, right? Like there's already enough to do in the game, as long as there's unique biomes and there's seeded generations of things. I think it's fine, right? There's going to be enough, the interest should be kind of like Freelancer, right? Freelancer didn't even have planets. It just had, landing locations, and we just really want landing locations, but we want to have fully procedural, surface to planet, interactions. So, we need a little bit of both, but it doesn't have to be No Man's Sky. When we do caves are going to be generated as separate meshes, and the shader is just going to blend the surface with the prefabricated caves, right? Like there's no... I'm not going to build a massive voxel system for the game, because it puts it way out of scope. So, there'll be atmospheric planets, water planets, and I think the water is nice. Have you considered a random chance to spawn some unique kind of exploration points, like crash ships? Yeah, absolutely. I want them to happen natural. So I thought about this pagan, and this is how I envision You saw Elite Dangerous. We play Elite Dangerous. I hope you like this water. This was actually given to me by a friend of mine. And I think this water is going to be amazing for the water planet. That's going to come probably this month as well. Slater, how's it going? Right, so I think, yeah, so in US, I gotta turn the music down a little bit. Hang on one second. It's too loud for me. I need to be able to talk, and I can't talk even though my music's great. It's I'll just turn it down a little bit here in my ear because I don't think it's too unbalanced for you guys. My headset's just too loud. Okay, so this is how this would go. Like we've been working on making obviously the big rings and the big ring stations, and that's going great. It's going to be more. I'm just going to bring Blender up here. All right, so we know ultimately in US. I'll probably launch the main US. Over the space. Oh, and Pagan, there's now a Linux version of the launcher available for testing. But I don't have a Linux build of the game. But it will. The Linux launcher will download the current Windows build, which you can play with Proton. Right now, there is a Linux build, but it's used for the server, so it's not, like perfect. But a native launcher now does exist, and I can actually share that with you to test on a Linux PC. But that is a thing. Let's use this one. So, as an example, right, here's a refinery module. Here's a very old refinery module. Right. So, all my Nix boxes are servers right now. I had to set up like an entertainment box there. It's all good. Right, so stations in the US are these massive ringed platforms that kind of get connected together and expand, and they have habitation modules, and we've been evolving them. There's going to be a new version that'll replace the truck stops. So they'll all be kind of these big orbital bad boys, right? So my idea is that artistically, for everything that exists, right, there will be a Greebled version of it. So there'll be a version that is a skeleton. So there will be fuel tanks, right, that are just enclosures that where the fuel tanks would go, and there would be they would just be made of kind of pieces. And my thought process is with a shader, right, I can actually take kind of like squares. I know that doesn't make sense, but and I can take a whole section of squares over a UV, and we can add noise, and we can kind of make a shader that creates, goes from alpha to non-alpha by applying these square patches over, whatever, level from 0 to 1. So I want to have a version of all of the stations that have greebles, so they have like structure, right? And then for the materials, I want to make this custom material. It's just like the damage system, only kind of in reverse, right? And the idea is that I would like for stations to be able to degrade, right, and kind of become stagnant, or to be created, right? So it would be really cool over time. And there'll be certain rules, right? Like if a player has a habitation module attached to a station, that station's never going to disappear, right? Because there's a purpose, right? There's some reason for its existence. But for stations that are like just being used economically, if things start falling apart, they will start withering, right? So they'll attempt to create contracts for players to like upkeep them, bring resources they need to maintain themselves. But if they fall, right, they'll fall in the disuse. And what happens after a while is they'll be salvaged, so they'll just go away. So, and why would I do that? That means that the political landscape of a star system can dynamically change over time. And what I mean by that is, like, in a star system, so let's like go to MS Paint here. More missions, yeah, but here's the idea. So let's pretend, right, that we have like star system, right, A, star system B, right. These are connected with jump gates, right. So we have some big little jump gates kind of connecting them, right. So these are independent star systems, right. In this star system where you happen to have a right, so let's say like for this to be bigger, change size, okay, whatever, it's dots. So let's say like we have like a star system here. Can I like not make it bigger? Size, brush size, whatever. Yeah. So normally what happens is, right, there's a pirate system. There's a system and it became a pirate system. A pirate base exists, right? So when traders, when little traders are kind of like coming along doing their thing, right, from this station here, right, to this station here, right, they're going through obviously our little ring, right? They're going through the ring, and they're like they're trucking along because the pirates are like here, as an example, right? They have to have the resources to do a lot of piracy, you know, in this system. So like if they're in here and they're attacking, you know, traders, if you're like at this station, you'll see that there's security contracts, right? Missions to go after pirates. But you won't notice that, like, they won't be spawning in extremely frequently, and the reason because they're not native to the station, right? Everything needs to have a source, right? So the pirates aren't native, so the pirates are coming from, right, random pirate station that happens to be here. Now it's, you know, for the player's perspective, the player would need to realize, right, like kind of like where these are coming from. So there's obviously no attacks happening here in this sector, few attacks happening here, but very frequently somewhere here there's like a pirate base. So this place, like there's security, like there's these security contracts, right, massively being generated. Security missions, shit needs help. And the reason why the pirates are coming here is that economically there's good refineries. We got some really good gases happening, right? There's good resources here. So because there's good resources here, there's a lot of trade happening. So, you know, what'll eventually happen, right, is if there's no security contracts being accepted, right, pirates can be like, this is super ripe, right? The system can be like, you know, the probability of us spawning in a pirate station is extremely high and growing every day. So what I would like for it to do is, if there's a huge kind of like imbalance here where, you know, there's pirates and they're actually being very successful at attacking traders on an NPC level, obviously, then eventually pirate station is created. And what's cool is pirate station doesn't exist, but pirate station is now spawned in a husk. It's being built. So pirate station starts creating contracts, right, for other pirates to go, right, and bring in goods, right, from pirates, you know, from their own work, right? They're going out there and pirating, you know, doing what they do, but bringing it to the new pirate station, right? As they're bringing goods to the new pirate station, right, there's just nothing but massive, you know, security uplift now happening, right? Holy crap, there's tons of piracy happening. There's a huge security demand here that now needs to happen, right, to the extreme, But because it's never being met by the NPCs or never being met by the players, all the piracy that starts happening is funneling all pirated activity to the development of the pirate station. And that means eventually the pirate station becomes finished. Now, whether you were a pirate and you were a part of that faction, and you help do that gameplay, you know what I mean, which you totally can, right? Like you're kind of determining, like how that kind of happens. Then eventually, the pirate station, thrives. Now, the only way of dealing with this pirate station and maintaining all this nice profitability that's happening in the sector, because the resources are still going to be high, right, is to keep suppressing the pirates. And if you keep suppressing the pirates, right, their resources start to dwindle, right? Like every other station in Unforgiven space, the upkeep starts not being made, right? So the pirates that are here, right, we can't afford, we're pirating, but we're getting blown up by security. Security is doing its thing. Eventually the demands of the station are no longer met. And then the station goes into disarray. And the station naturally collapses, right? And all of this becomes pretty much salvage. And eventually the security contracts will kind of start dying off because the piracy decreases. And then the demand decreases, right? And it becomes just standard economic again. But the player then can influence the way this happens. If the player keeps helping, once the player knows, about being a pirate, and they know the factions, right? They're part of the Red Dawn or whatever, or the Crimson Dawn or whatever the faction is, and they can see their influence, right? Like what's the influence of that pirate station, inside this system, right? Like their influence still exists, right? And not type of elites like system either. I mean, like they still have members there. They still have NPCs, right? They have some influence here. That as a faction, right? As more missions, like because you can still accept missions. Like that faction exists over here, right? Same faction that created this system, same faction, right? Just they don't have a station here. So you're doing the work. You're coming through. You're pirating for them, right? Pirating, bringing the stuff back, longer distance, right? Like there's a lot of risk to this type of piracy. But what you're doing is you're increasing the crime and increasing the crime and increasing the crime, right? You're giving them success and fear in the system, and as that reputation reaches a certain point, the economics kick in and the creation of a station gets born, right? That station then triggers a whole bunch of contracts, dependencies that have to be met, right? And alternatively, players can start actually jumping on board and doing security and suppressing that. Like we want this, it's beneficial, like to me corporately. Say you're like you want to make money and this is one of the better, you've discovered this is one of the better asteroid mining places. So it doesn't make sense, for these pirates to be here. Like we don't want these pirates here. They're being annoying, right? Like pirates equals bad. Right, then you want to help support, right, the security. You want to bolster the security, so there's security in here, right, and then these guys can go away. But if you're a bad player or if you're a pirate, it might be more beneficial for the pirates to have control over this, But because you're not going to get attacked. You're a pirate. You're like a bad guy anyway. So now there's a bad guy station with all of these resources available to them, right? That can help, grow their own, resources and their own everything that they need on their side, right? Because but just for anyone else now, like, this is kind of a wash. So the only real way then is for law enforcement is to bolster and kind of push back, right? And this will yin and yang dynamically, but the player can jump in and kind of choose to, you know, where they kind of stand, all depending on where they are on their reputation with those factions, right? That are like, right. So the idea is that these, you know, stations can have a default configuration, but they can over time, right? Like modules can be extended upon and created economically, right? And a station can slowly grow, you know, to be big enough to be like a shipping, you know, station. I know I'm really like, you know, terrible in this paint, right? But huge, giant, orbital, you know, shipping yards can happen, right, in a thriving economic system, right? And it could always be threatened by pirates and whatever, but you know, so that's you know, so like all of this starts with very simple gas mining missions, right? You go, you get some gas, you bring it to a refinery, it turns into fuel. You get some ore, you know, you get some rocks, we're mining rocks, we're bringing it to the refinery, it's getting converted into metals, right? So you have fuel, you have ice, right? So these initial 3 ship configurations will be important. But I gotta use the washroom and I'll be right back afterwards. So I hope that makes sense. So that's why the goal of I don't know why that doesn't like stay up. Go. Thanks. Alright, so you know, all of these variations will be in this build that I'm working on. Right, so this is like what the medical module looks like as an example. Right, so originally I would pre-allocate what these station modules would be, like whether it has a hospital or not. But I'm changing my mind on that, and I'm going to let the economy decide how these get built, you know what I mean, and what their default configuration will be when things come online. And I think it'll be cool. So this is like, you know, some of the more future but I need to find that work that we were doing. And I'm still not abandoning specialty ships like our Rock Crusher here. I want, you know, role specific specialty ships, but at a medium class scale, so medium to large. But I'm going to break them down. I think it'd be really cool, and it makes a lot more sense that at the medium level we can have a variation of ship that has modules and can kind of become a little bit of everything. So we can take a medium-sized ship, convert it to it's a gas mining ship, but it's not that great at it. It has limited fuel, right? You can do cargo. There's a hauling variant, which we already, you know, it's the first ship I made was the hauling variant. So we have these 3 variants of the same ship at a small to medium class that we can just play the gameplay with. But then when you decide, I really like hauling, I really like mining, I really like salvage, you can move into the larger kind of specifics. So like for salvage, it's like a big space barge with massive, you know, mag plates that you can just throw large chunks of metal on, right? If it's a mining ship, you get something similar to this one where you have a rock crusher, right? Specifically designed to just, you know, go through asteroids, crush rocks, but, you know, has a huge cost. Like there's a larger, you know, multi-crew cost to this. So you need to discover like the fun in that for yourself before you kind of like commit to that style. So I like the idea of being able to make things modular, focus, and then if you find gameplay loops that you think are more fun, then there will be ships available in each role at the larger scale. So from medium to large, you know. Anyway, that's my rambling. Hopefully that's clear. So lots of plans for the system development and evolution. Yeah, that's the idea, right? Is because I think what this does is it removes stagnation, and it removes it keeps your familiarity. Like once you're in a star system and you've discovered it, you know, like the planets, you know, the fields, you kind of know the basics. But remember, Pagan, that things are in rotation as well in my game, and I want them to have orbital rotation. So like the distances and trade routes will change dynamically. But then with that, you know, if known stations can slowly change over time and degrade and grade, and you know, it over time introduces a very interesting dynamic opportunity, and it gives an in-game reason for a new star system to be created. Hey, Tigo Blade, right? It means that players can influence the development of things. It's not like, oh, in this update, a magical star system was created. It grows into itself, right? It can be built up in a gameplay focused system, right? Similar to Elite, when Elite's making these massive stations, but the ones in US are very, very small. So, or a lot smaller in scope. But I gotta use the washroom, and when I'm back, we'll kind of chat more to it. So like these tanks are the same size as the ones that are on the medium gas mining ship. Well, we need to finish the weapon groups and a few other things. So I'm going to go use the washroom real quick, and I'll be back. Yeah, so anyway, that's where we are right now. So I started working on this. So these are like mining effects. They're very early. But we need to find a way to pull in with the new tractor beam the chunk pieces, and they're like, you know, very primitive form. So I've created like a particle system with the tractor. I need to figure out like how that's going to work, because I want them to come, I want these particles to kind of appear at the object facing towards the player. So there's the axis of this particle emission needs to always be kind of looking towards the tractor beam. So there's a little bit of nuance there for how I want that to kind of look. But obviously these are just the same particle effects as the asteroid itself, so it doesn't look that great right now. This is just basic. You know, it's getting stuff in to, you know, kind of get things working. You know, get the asteroid chunks separating, get them being like sucked up, and then get things working is the goal, right? So I don't know if I want another variation of this. Because I don't even know if we need the attractor box if we just put them in local space and have them be like rotated. Because I think like this works naturally if they're local. Yeah, I want the simulation to be local so we can rotate it a little bit more effective. Yeah, so if I make it local here... See, it's funny that local never works the way that I want local to work. Oh! Local does work. But it's local to the... Not really though. It's really weird because it's supposed to rotate with the planet. But it's not behaving correctly. Yeah, I don't know why like local is an option when it isn't. And if this attractor is here and this attractor is moving, why does the simulation change when I rotate it? Right? If the effects are truly, if that velocity is local, wouldn't it always be the same? And that's one thing about Godot that I found that's super weird. Because as I find local, like setting everything to be local isn't true. Because its initial velocity, it seems to still be in world space. Even when you enable, you know, for it to be local. If I donate 5 bits, will you shave one eyebrow? I highly doubt so. Yeah, we could guarantee that the simulation is in local space. Yeah, see, like, this works better this way. But it should just be able to just keep it all in local. You know what I mean? Like, I should be able to enable local and have its velocity be local. I don't understand why it doesn't work that way. So ideally, when we raycast and we hit our target, we'll spawn this particle effect. And we'll spawn it, like, you know, as a child of our tractor beam at the raycast length. And it would, like, just work. But, I mean, it doesn't seem to be the case. Like, I don't understand why, like, local coordinate, you know, particle effects, like, why it says, hey, make this all local, but then it's not. Like, what's the point of local if local doesn't work? Right? I say local, it points down. And it's not like it's consistent either. Like, if I point up, right, they're sticking to the world. Like, that direction is always the same. Right? It's not a local effect. Right? And this is the thing I need to solve of why it is this way. Because it actually affects the tractor, like the thruster effects as well. Right, there's a linear acceleration here, which is the one that's actually doing it, I think. Right, now there's only the attractor doing it. If we can increase the tractor strength, right? Let's see how like it doesn't honor the attractor. Right, the attractor is right here. Right, it doesn't matter where the attractor is. Right, once this is in local, because according to this, if it is local, let's see. Right, particles use the parent node's coordinate space, also known as local coordinates. This will cause the particle to move and rotate along the GP particle node and its parents. When it is moved, if false, the particle uses global coordinates and will not be moved along. But it is doing the opposite. Right? I want this particle emitter to be a thing. Ideally, this should all be local, all be what's inside the effect. We rotate the effect. We make it local, it doesn't do it. Okay, it's stuck in world land. Anyone familiar with it? Right? Why would a local particle effect fail? Right? Why would something have an option to be local relative to the parent, and then you change it and it's still stuck in world space? Makes no sense. It means that the particles are not honoring the parent. And I wonder if we have the same effect with the regular particles, like CPU particles. So let's say we have a local, we'll do the exact same kind of setup. We'll move it over. We shouldn't really even need an attractor for this. We'll do kind of the same thing. And it's this. We're going to copy the pass. Alright, so they're not local by default. So we're saying gravity is 9.8. If it's local and we turn, why does it go the opposite? Like, wouldn't it go this way and not the adjacent way? It makes no sense for this pivot to have that behavior. Same with the other, like, it's so weird. Hey, Boolean. Welcome, welcome. We are trying to figure out something with Godot. I'm trying to make a local particle effect be truly local. Right, so we have a gravity value, which is like minus 9.8, and we were to move this around, you know, we want it to stay pointing Y down. But none of our local GPU particles, or even in this case CPU particles, they're not really local. They're not local in a unity sense. Right? Like, why are they inverted? They're not inverted in the right way. Right? Like, why is local not truly local? It's like all of. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun. Yeah, it's annoying. It's super annoying, and it's one of the things I need to. It's one of the effects that I want to get working this week for sucking up the mining chunks. Right. So like in a true local simulation, this would happen in local space. And if I rotated the entire simulation, it would still work. But see, what's happening is the attractor. Remember, the attractor is here. Here's the attractor. But because all of the simulation seems to be happening in world space, right? The idea is that when local coordinates is enabled, the parent should be, you know, this should be aligning itself to the parent. And if, you know, if it is, it should follow that parent. But it's never done this, and I've had this issue since I moved from Unity. Like with thrusters, right? We have a thruster animation, just like a fire. Think of the domain here as we have a fire, and fire goes up, right? Fire shader in Godot. And what you want to do is be able to rotate the fire in any position and have the fire's particles always be local, like moving away from, right? Nothing that I've seen so far works. Like there's the concept of the particle being local, but it's not true. I always figured it was a lack of knowledge, because all of these, right? So all of these vectors, right, for like vertical velocity, these all seem to be world oriented. And if they truly honored local coordinates, I wouldn't need to turn them on. Like, I get without it, right? The particles themselves aren't in, right? So as I move, see all the particles are kind of, they're actually working without it, but they're kind of slow, you know what I mean? I want the particles to follow their parent, right? Which is what local is doing. But local is only doing that positionally and not necessarily like directionally, if that makes sense. So like if we turn it on, we know wherever we are, local coordinates. So we can see that they're spawning locally, and we can see even when we move the parent, right? That, like, we are moving them, but they're maintaining their world velocities. They're maintaining their world accelerations. They're maintaining their world. They are not being local. They're only being local by their position and not their simulation. If that makes sense, right? I should be able to say, hey, I want all these particles to go z minus, or z plus in this case. And I should be able to rotate this thing, and it still does it, no matter what. But like the angle, like its angle of influence is now the total opposite normal of the true attractor at this point, right? So the attractor's here, this is where we want it to go, it's going the opposite normal, right? So this would be the opposite domain of what we would be heading towards. And the further in the direction we go, the more opposing the system is. Right? Even though the attractor in local space, it doesn't really know what to do with it. I wish you could tell me, right? Very annoying. And so I'm like, okay, well let's do the basics, right? Basics. We have a mesh. This is a CPU particle. So CPU particles are not running on the GPU, so they have more data. So you would think gravity is down, right? We have the gravity, right? So an initial velocity being gravity. I could turn off gravity and make it an angular velocity, and it would be the same thing. But so we have a minus 9.8. So you would think if local coordinates gets turned on, right, this becomes local. It kind of does, but it doesn't work right. As we move and as we rotate, they they end up kind of going. Yeah, it's like they're stuck in world space. It doesn't, like, the concept of local space seems to not make any sense to what this is doing. Can you show me one as a TCSN file? So this is default GPU or CPU particle. They follow local space for gravity and everything. And you're able to rotate them. CPU or GPU particle. I'm going to move it away from the attractor because the attractor could be causing some chaos here. Right, so I just have it here, man, and I can restart this emission. It's just standard GPU particle we copied in our mesh. GPU particles, they rotate in the whole parent and the whole, that doesn't, yeah, for me that's not a thing. And the only thing different in my build is I'm using a 64-bit build. So let's start over, right? Let's really start over, right? This new scene, just, we don't need anything crazy. 3D scene, right? GPU particle 3D. We're going to use an empty mesh. This is going to be like something stupid, right? So GPU particle 3D, boom. We won't even save this scene. So all we need is a process material and a drop pass. So we're going to do one drop pass. Let's do a plane mesh. We'll do box mesh. Sure, why not? Let's get some boxes, right? Let's assume that this box, 0.1, these are little tiny thruster emissions. You know what I mean? Like, there's enough space here to not need to change anything. This is simple domain, right? So we want to rotate this, right? And everything work, right? So the only thing we have by default on the process material is going to be gravity, because that's all that we get by default, right? We get animated velocity or spawn velocity, velocity, where's our acceleration, gravity. So gravity is the only thing we have, right? We have up, we have down. Let's do -5. So we have -5, that's the only thing we have. So we should be able to make this local. So let's go. Let's close out all this here. Okay, so time, collision drawing, local. Right? Like, am I going crazy? You know what I mean? Am I literally going crazy? Maybe it's a bug in the 64-bit. Maybe. But since like moving my entire project over to Godot, this has never worked. Particles, GPU particles, have never truly been local. And you're saying, yeah, I'm on 4.41 stable, mono, only of course my own custom build. Right? It's just, you know, yeah. It's always worked. And like, is there anything crazy? Well, here, let's try something. I'm gonna just save the scene as, because everything in this scene is local. So in this scene, we're gonna call it test scene. I'm just gonna throw this on my Discord. Although I always use global coordinates instead. I mean, you know, like we should just better rotate this. So there's nothing in here. It's just its own scene. It's called test.tcsn. So if we run this, I'm gonna throw it on my Discord here. I'm very, very, very curious. You guys are welcome to join the Discord. Just unforgiven.com or ! Discord. I'm just gonna throw this scene file here. I'm very curious if anyone wants to like just open this in anything and just rotate it and see if it rotates. It's so weird to me that right, like, you know, we can do all kinds of crazy funky, you know, like a train generation, but yeah, that is wild, because that's going to be a problem, right? If I can't figure out this, then I can't do the mining effects in the way that I want, because I have a whole plan for these, but you know, like I need to be able to do it in the way that the way that this is going to be set up. Because it's going to be the same for the engine, so just to give you an idea, in the Unity version of the game, let me open a new tab here. So, Twitch Revere. So to give you an idea, like this is one of the, yeah, let's go to clips, show all clips. There should be an engines. I'm looking for just a clip where I'm just showing off the engine effects. I want to remake those engine effects, but they're not going to work if we can't get the GPU particles to work. We'll need to figure it out. Yeah, there should be one here that someone clipped. It's fairly popular where it's just me showing off the new engines. Maybe it's this. Right, so yeah. So when the engines, you know, hit a surface, they create an actual like particle effect, and that particle effect is aligned to the collision normal, right, or the upward normal to the surface. So this is probably just me talking about it, but you know, the idea is like as the ship comes in and the engines gimbal, and they're actually like firing downward, then they spawn in like dust clouds, like at, you know, the underside. This is early, way back in the day, and we need this. You know, it was a cool, you know, part of the. So it is a bug with the 64-bit build. That is so interesting. So I wonder how I don't even know how we report that. You might want to open that scene, hit a blank project. to make sure there's nothing. Okay, that's good. Yep. But surely someone would have particle bug. Someone surely would have like come across that bug before. You know what I mean? You'd think maybe. I don't think a lot of people will true. It's fairly new. Yeah, I'm going to have to find a way. I'll have to open a PR. I'm going to have to figure out how to fix it. We want to open file manager, and then this is not here. Close out the world, close out this. Well, I mean, that's a good proof of concept. Yeah, it's a good MRP project. Just duplicate it and have one rotated. Might need to make that process material unique. Hang on. Actually, maybe that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Right, so this one should be working. Yeah, so they're both local, one's rotated, one's not. Well, we can submit a bug, so that's cool. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. I thought I actually had it installed, but I guess not. It already exists. 2 weeks ago, rather, along with other stuff. There's a PR that would fix it. It was open last week. This is really good news, though. That's awesome. Okay, so maybe that'll just fix itself. Yeah, because that was driving me crazy like a couple days ago. Because I'm like, why is this an issue? Everything else has generally been okay, and this is actually like a huge deal. Well, at least for what I'm trying to create, for the mining, like not being able to, you could make it not local and it'll be kind of fine for the time being. But it'd be like, less ideal. Because the attractors would still work, but it's just unfortunate because, like, ideally I want, the asteroids won't move, but the lasers will be. Yeah, so I guess it'll just have to be non-local for the time being. Until the fix is in. And that's probably fine. It just would have been nice for it to be local. Because if the rigid bodies still have a little bit of motion to them, I guess their particles would kind of break off and be where they are. Yeah, I guess there really isn't much to worry about. Yeah, I think that's probably fine. And then same for like these guys. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, that'll work. Alright, with that, I'm gonna go get ready and grab some snacks and get ready to go to bed. But anyway, that's the progress on everything. Right now, new audio system. Let me mute my audio here. New ship variations. New clunkety clunkety. Gotta fix these panels because we're in cell by default. It's annoying. Anyway, we're gonna go fly off in space and end it here on YouTube and go raid someone.